I am Lissa Wadewitz. I'm Associate Professor of History at Linfield College, and I am here with...
I am Ruby Guyot, and I am a current student at Linfield College, class of 2019.
And we are here with Roberta Campbell in Woodburn, Oregon on February 1st, 2019. So, hi Roberta.
Hi.
So first, we just wanted to ask you to tell us a little bit about your background, like where you grew up, and a little about your life before Linfield.
Well, a long time ago, I was born in Harbin, Nebraska, and came west with my family, and I think it was 1936 that we finally decided to stay in Oregon. And we lived mostly in Sandy at that time, about a mile east of town. And I graduated from the Sandy Elementary School and the high school. And I graduated from the high school in 1945, and after that I enrolled at Linfield. And I went to Linfield because I had two cousins who, her name was Jean Dickerson and he was Richard Mudrow, and they met at Linfield when they were students, and it was because of them that I did come to Linfield. And then after I got to Linfield, I needed some work on campus, and so I was assigned to work for Mrs. Dillin, who was the wife of the president at that time. They had 3 children, and I took care of them. I helped Mrs. Dillin with entertaining and food preparation and things like that. And I felt I was almost a member of the family, which was fun. They were very nice. Then in after the war was over and the veterans were coming back to the campus, there was a shortage of student housing, and so the Dillons had 2 guest rooms, and 3 other girls and I were invited to stay at their home that first semester to help with the housing problems. And that was really exciting because there were two girls and 2 girls together, and we had our own room and bath, but we took our meals at the dining room. However, I did help Mrs. Dillin entertain, and the dignitaries that came, that were part of their job. And I met some nice people. There was a Tom Dewey, I think he was running for president way back when, and I met him, and I'm just kind of rambling on. Is that okay?
That's okay.
I'm trying to get in all the information I can. What else do you want to know?
Well, tell us a little bit more about Tom Dewey.
My what?
You got to meet this candidate for president?
Yes, and there were several others who were some of the other people running at the same time that he did.
Truman was president, and that's who he was running against.
But that was, I didn't meet him, but whoever was running with Tom Dewey came at the same time, and I met him too. And then, of course, all the dignitaries that was running the college, and I don't know their names either, but that's okay. We don't either. So, well.
So what else about living in the house would you remember?
Well, I remember they had a 10-year-old son, and I remember playing ping pong with him in their basement, and that was kind of fun. He was a nice kid, and the other 2 were somewhat younger. Kathy was just about 18 months at that time, and whatever you do for taking care of an 18-month-old is what I did. And I helped with laundry, and I remember one time Mrs. Dillin was entertaining, and she was having quite a large group, and we were going to have a tossed salad, and she didn't have anything big enough to put it in. So I went back to my dormitory and to the sorority and got their salad bowl. It was a great big bowl. And so that's what that was their punch bowl. So I took it to the Dillins, and we had salad in it. And those are just some of the fun things that we did.
And how long did you live in the house?
I lived there with them for one semester, the second semester of my sophomore year. And then I moved into, I think it was, there were several dorms. There was one new dorm was the newest dormitory for girls, and that's where I went with a roommate. Well, let's see, what else?
Do you remember the name of the dormitory?
What was that?
Do you remember the name of the dormitory?
It was just called at that time New Dorm.
I think that's Jane Failing now.
Is it?
I think so.
Failing, no.
I think that's Failing Hall now.
Is it now failing?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And then I remember one of the nicer things about living at Linfield or being at Linfield was that wherever you went, if you were walking across the campus and you met another student, you said hello, whether you knew them or not. And you always said hello. Didn't matter, just hello and away you'd go. And in fact, I'd be walking along Portland Street, hello! And so we learned some nice things at Linfield.
I was wondering if we could go back to your high school years. You said that you attended Sandy High School, and you attended during the war. Do you remember anything about how the war affected life as a high school student?
I think mainly, or a lot of it, was that gas rationing for activities, and I'm not sure how that affected the sports, the football or not, but I know that one time we had a dance at the school, and this young man, he was so nice. I lived about a mile from the school, and we were going to a party, and so he walked the mile to my house with an umbrella in case it rained, and then we walked back to the high school, and he didn't have a car, and he wouldn't have had gas anyway, so that's how we went to the party. I think, as far as I can think of, going to high school at that time was probably whatever normal was, because I had no way of knowing how the war affected what the school was doing. I know that at home we were, there was the usual sugar and butter and that kind of thing. It wasn't too available all the time, but I didn't worry about that. My folks didn't. If it was a problem, they didn't tell us kids. We just went along, as we should. I was very fortunate. I had a happy home, and I did well in high school. I was the salutatorian at my graduating class. And, well, what else?
Well, I guess we'll move forward back to Linfield. You told us about the housing situation, but what was the mood like on Linfield's campus?
It was pretty cheerful.
Yeah.
And what fellas there were very popular because they got invited to all the parties. And, and then we had, on the campus, there's this building, the big brick building that's been there forever and ever. Somebody's hall.
Pioneer Hall?
Pioneer Hall. It's still there, isn't it?
That's where
Okay.
my office is.
Yeah. You're off? Okay. Well, then there was the old oak tree and the May Day activities that took place under the old oak. And that was always exciting. And let's see. Well, I just thoroughly enjoyed being at Linfield. And I finally decided I'd better have a major, so I decided I would major in English in education, and that's how I became a teacher. And I went to my first job in Amity as a high school English teacher. And I also taught shorthand and typing because I had shorthand and typing in high school. In those days, you taught whatever you could. And from there I went to, I think I came from Amity to Woodburn. And I taught English and speech at Woodburn. And I directed the class plays. And when I was at Linfield, I was in a couple of the class plays, whatever. I love drama. And one of my favorite classes was the oral interpretation class. And we had a great teacher for that. I would say that my whole experience at Linfield was very positive. And I'm so glad I was able to go. And yes, I just am so glad I could. I wasn't sure at first, but it worked out just beautifully.
So you mentioned the male students on campus when you got to Linfield. Did you notice lots of male students on campus from the GI Bill when you were on campus?
When we came back the next fall, yes, there were a lot of veterans there. And that perked up the social scene a lot. But most of them were very serious about their studies and wanted to use their benefits well. And they did. Yeah.
Can you tell us more about the social life on campus at the time?
The what?
About the social life on campus?
Well, I belonged to a social sorority. We didn't have national sororities. But we always had a dance and various, mainly a dance. But the guys who were available were always invited to come because if you're going to dance, you need two. And for the most part, they were all very generous with our time, and we had fun.
Did you participate in any of the May Day celebrations?
I think I was a princess or something like that. Yes, I think so, particularly when I was a senior. But I was always aware of all those and was excited about them. And then as time went on, different buildings were constructed on the campus, and we had a real dining room. We used to just eat in one of the areas in Pioneer Hall, and the food was kind of iffy lots of times, as campus food is, and sometimes Cascade Park is. We eat quite well here. Well, I just lots of pleasant thoughts go by.
I have a follow-up real quick. You said one of your favorite classes was oral interpretation.
Yes.
Did Mahaffey teach it?
Who,
Was it
Mahaffey?
Professor Mahaffey?
He didn't, but I did have speech classes from him.
Others have talked about.
Oh, I want to tell you about him. When I was a junior and a senior, in addition to working for Mrs. Dillin, I became an assistant to Roy Mahaffey in that I helped him run his speech tournaments. Were you in speech? Oh, yeah, that was interesting. We would have speech tournaments for both high schools and colleges, and just so many people would come. It was a great thing to be invited to attend one of those. And we had a terrible time finding places to have the speeches. And I remember one time we were in kind of a little lobby of a girls' restroom, and they were having a debate because there wasn't any place else to have it. But, he was a good person. I always liked his advice about giving a speech. Stand up, speak up, and shut up. And it worked. Try it. Well, let's see. The interpretation teacher, her name was Nelda Balch, Balch, and she was the director of the drama too, and which I thoroughly enjoyed. When I left Linfield and I was teaching at my other schools, I did direct class plays, and one thing I learned from Mr. Mahaffey and Mrs. Balch was that have good plays. The high school that I went to in Amity, they had a play or plays, but they were just some little dumpy thing. So I went to French's and some of those publishers and got good ones. Cheaper by the dozen and those kind. And people liked them. I had no trouble getting audiences. And that thrilled me, of course. So as I look back, I really have had good things happen to me.
So can you tell us, were there any other favorite professors that you remember from your days?
Well, there was, and you probably all remember him too. You probably would. The literature, Dr. somebody, oh darn.
Is that Whitman? Dr. Whitman?
No, that doesn't quite ring the bell. But he was, maybe I'll think of it as I go along. Yeah.
We can come back to it.
But he made Shakespeare and everybody just come out so well. You liked it all. He taught American Lit and English Lit and Shakespeare. And it's right on the tip of my tongue, but I can't say it. You ever happen? Well, what else?
What was President Dillin like?
President Dillin?
And you can answer that.
Oh, President Dillin, in his home, he was just a plain, nice, ordinary guy, but he was a very efficient, well-respected president. And I was sad when he passed away. Later on, when the Dillins had retired and were living in their own home, occasionally my husband and I were invited to dinner at their house, which was nice too. Irene, Mrs. Dillin was an interesting cook because she liked to and she wanted things to taste good, and she tried lots of nice things. And so our dinners were very special. And then, of course, we thought it was nice to be invited to the president's house for dinner, too. So that was fun.
Do you remember, can you tell us about sorority life at Linfield?
Well, as I said, they were local sororities. There were national men's fraternities, but I don't know what they have now. But the local ones, mine was called Lambda Lambda Sigma. And I guess we did what sororities do. It was like a nice girls' club, and well, I don't know what you mean by sorority life. But do you belong to one?
No, I don't.
Because they don't have houses.
No, yeah.
So.
No, you didn't have, at least at that time, you just lived wherever. But you had a designated place for your meetings. And I think we all had space to put our materials, like my punch bowls and that kind of stuff.
How did you meet your husband?
Well, I met him after I came to Woodburn to teach. He was here at the time, and he was a principal of a junior high, and working on his master's degree. And so I just knew who he was, but after he got his master's degree, we became acquainted, and eventually we did marry, and we have 2 children, a boy and a girl, and he has since passed away, much to my sorrow. He was from Idaho, from Cascade, Idaho, if anybody's familiar with that. That's north of Boise. And he came to Oregon because he didn't like the snowy winters in Idaho. And he taught at Woodburn as junior high principal and director of special studies. We got lots of Title I projects going through him. He did later teach at or work at Temecula Community College as a director of admissions, and he came back to Woodburn before he retired to become a junior high principal again. He had a good rapport with kids that age. I at that time had taken time out to have the 2 children, and that was about 10 years worth, I guess. And so I had to renew my teaching certificate, and did do that. And at that time I took classes to become a reading resource teacher, and that was special ed, or special reading. And that's what I ended up doing when I retired.
We want to go back to your experiences living in the Dillin house. Was that strange to be the only 4 of you living, 4 students? In the
Yes,
house?
it was. Yeah, we did feel kind of special, and people would kind of look askance when we told them where we lived, and
And you lived there for a whole semester?
a semester, yes.
And then what did you do?
Well, then I moved back into this new dorm.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
To what we think is Jane family. Okay.
Yeah, and then I just lived in dormitories the rest of the time.
So that must have been, was living in the house more glamorous than living in the dorm?
Was what?
More glamorous? Fancy?
No. No, we tried to just be people.
But you were living with the college president.
I was living with the president's wife or family
Yeah.
for a semester, yes, and right after the war.
So how were you able to pay for your Linfield education?
Oh, I did have, I got paid for being the president's helper or her mom's helper. And I think I might have gotten paid for working for Mr. Mahaffey. But my dear mother and an uncle were my angels and got me through. And I'm always grateful to them. Yes, and now it isn't quite as now it's a lot more expensive to go to Linfield than it was at that time. I don't see how some of them make it really. You're shaking your head.
It is expensive, but it's worth it.
Yes. Yeah.
So do you think that, or let me start over. So you lived through the whole war. You were young. I know you said that as a high school student it didn't really filter into your day-to-day life, but it must have had an impact on you. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
I think most of the impact was just in the background. You always knew that this terrible thing was going on and that people were being killed. And radio was the main way of getting information. But my dad saw that we always had a radio so we could keep up. And we did. We always had a newspaper too. And it was important to my dad to be current of what was going on. And so I was aware that there was a war. And then I had Kathy's cousin was a pilot on a ship that pulled, what was his ship? See something or other. Anyway, it was to carry paratroopers, and he did happen to carry paratroopers on D-Day when that took place. And they see he was in the service. Two other cousins, one of whom landed on Omaha Beach and was able to fight his way across Europe with General Patton. Was that the guy? We thought it was kind of wonderful because he didn't get wounded or anything. He just made it all the way in one piece. And then another cousin was a fighter pilot on a plane in the South Pacific. So that was our involvement with the war. We had our relatives going, and we always were concerned about them. And mail wasn't always very good. We would try to write to these people because that was their way of keeping in touch. And we didn't always hear from them, and then we worried about them. One of the reasons I went to Linfield was because of my cousins, but also I did get a scholarship for the first semester, and it was $75. And we thought that was wonderful. First of all, to have a scholarship, and then secondly, well, anyway, we were pleased because that said that I was smart enough to get one.
And that was a scholarship from the college?
Yes.
Okay.
For the first semester's tuition. You can't do that nowadays.
And it was for good grades that you had got in high school?
Yes, yeah. When I was in high school, yes. Well, you had to apply for it, but yes, if you didn't have grades, you didn't apply.
why was it important for you to go to college?
Because I wanted to. Well, I wanted to be more than an ordinary job. I thought it was better than just getting, I could have had secretarial jobs right off the bat, and that was nothing wrong with that. In fact, if I had taken a couple, I probably would have had a pretty good career as a secretary and a business person. But I just wanted to go to college. That was important.
So what advice would you have to offer to a college student today?
Well, do everything you possibly can, like you're doing right now, doing this project. And if you're involved if you like drama or plays, do try out. And if you're into sports, do that. Follow your dream. And be thankful that you're able to be there doing that.
Is there anything else about your time at Linfield that you'd like to tell us today?
Oh, probably, but I can't think of it.
That's fair.
So when we say Linfield, what immediately pops into your mind?
I get this kind of a fuzzy picture of the campus, and it kind of all blends in together with Pioneer Hall and walking across the campus and saying hello to people. It's kind of a picture. I'm sure you've all done that too. You said a word and you see all of these things, and that's what I feel about Linfield. But as I've grown up, become more mature and older, I'm more and more grateful that I had the experience and was able to go to Linfield. It just, it was so special. That's it.